Hi everyone, this is Paul Garrard. I'm a student loan consultant working with the American Dental Education Association. We'd like to welcome you to dental school, and in this video presentation we have some important information to share with you about borrowing for dental school. In this presentation we're going to cover some cost considerations. We're going to take a look at the dental school debt and the kind of loans you're going to be borrowing in your student loan portfolio. We'll take a quick look at some of the repayment strategies your colleagues who have already graduated from dental school are using to pay back their student loans. And we'll close this up with some action items and some great resources to help you along the way. Now we start out with some cost considerations and the impact they can have on your borrowing for dental school. Your financial aid office can provide you with what's called the cost of attendance or financial aid budget number, and that number changes slightly each year. You can also probably find this on the school's website. This number is very important because it indicates the amount of financial aid you can have from a combination of sources every single year. We'd encourage you to take a look at the budget, the itemized listing, and we're going to show you an example on the next slide, and pull out in the financial aid budget those items that you have some control over and focus on those. So control what you can control and set up a realistic budget that will help you with borrowing. And guys, never borrow more than you really need. Now you're going to find out a bit later in this presentation that you can actually borrow up to the full cost of attendance with two federal loans, direct unsubsidized and direct plus, also known as grad plus. But just because you can borrow the full amount doesn't mean that you have to. We'd also encourage you to be cautious about private loans. If you're considering a private loan in lieu of or in addition to federal student loans, we'd encourage you to talk with your financial aid office first. Now, on the previous slide, when we started talking about cost considerations, we talked about the cost of attendance or financial aid budget. And once again, your financial aid office can share this with you. You might also be able to find it on your school's website. Now, the actual breakdown may not look exactly like this, but it should look similar. And this is just a sample cost of attendance. You'll notice that we've highlighted some items in red: room and board, transportation, and personal expenses. And as we referenced on the previous slide, these are likely the only items in your cost of attendance that you have some control over, so focus on these. And what we did in this example, we're representing a 9-month budget. And if you take the room and board, transportation, and personal expenses and divide them by 9, it comes out to a living allowance of around $2,400 per month. So in this example, that's the target for your monthly budget. We'd encourage you to do this same exercise with the actual cost of attendance at your school, and your financial aid office can certainly help you with that. Now, we talk a lot at ADEA about how responsible borrowing can lead to responsible repayment after you guys graduate from dental school. Let's take a quick look now at how smart budgeting can lead to responsible borrowing while you're in dental school, all with the idea of trying to help prepare you for repayment after you graduate. Guys, if you make poor budgeting decisions while you're in dental school, perhaps you're using credit cards to live beyond your means, you may be forced into a repayment plan you really don't want after you graduate. Now, we're going to talk more about this in an upcoming slide, but remember we said you can borrow the full cost of attendance with two federal loans, direct unsub and direct plus. But just because you can doesn't mean you have to. So if you borrow under your cost of attendance amount to start, you can borrow more later if you need to, and that will delay the start of interest accrual on your student loans, and that can help reduce how much you actually repay on those. Also, if you don't track your loans each year, guys, you could have sticker shock when you go to your senior loan exit interview to review all your repayment options. The AAMC ADEA Dental Loan Organizer and Calculator can really help you tracking your loans. Now, the most recent mean or average that we have for indebted students only coming out of dental school is $296,500. And this, once again, is for indebted borrowers only. And guys, this includes any pre-dental school debt. Now, guys, there's actually some good news about dental school borrowing. First of all, we hope you've heard that dental school graduates have a terrific reputation for repaying their student loans. So the bar has been set high for you guys. We've also mentioned already the good news that federal loans can cover the entire cost of attendance. Your direct unsub and direct plus, you can borrow the full cost of attendance regardless of what that number is. Once again, remember, just because you can do that doesn't mean you have to. In most all cases, all of your loans will be serviced by one loan servicer, and that simply means that when you get out of dental school, you may have a lot of debt and a lot of loans, but in all likelihood, they'll be serviced by one organization. And there are multiple repayment options available on federal student loans, including payments that are tied to your income, not the amount that you actually have borrowed. But there's some not so good news about dental school borrowing. The interest rate maximums on direct loans are high, 9.5% for direct unsub and 10.5% for direct plus, also called the grad plus loan. Please remember that the grad plus is always a full point higher than direct unsub. So the maximums are high. These are unsubsidized loans, and if you've never borrowed before, that just simply means that interest starts to accrue or build up on the loans when they are dispersed, and that adds to the amount that you owe at repayment. And since you can borrow up to the full cost of attendance with a Grad Plus loan, sometimes that can encourage excessive borrowing when you really don't need that much money. So some good news and some not so good news about dental school borrowing. Now, in general, there are three different categories of student loans that you could borrow while you're in dental school: direct loans, campus-based loans, and private loans. Direct loans, this includes the direct unsub and direct plus that we've already mentioned. And for many of you, probably most of you, those loans will make up the majority of, if not all of your student loan portfolio. Check with your financial aid office because your school may have the availability of what are called campus-based loans, including the health profession student loan, loans for disadvantaged students, and there may be institutional loans directly from your school. Once again, these are not available at all schools. Check with the financial aid office at your dental school. And then some students have private loans. Once again, these are not needed in dental school because you can borrow up to the full cost of attendance with direct unsub and direct plus if you're eligible for federal loans. You may have some private loans before you got to dental school. Now let's take a quick look at direct unsub and also direct plus, because once again, guys, these are the two federal loans that are likely to make up most of, if not all of your student loan portfolio. With direct unsubsidized, you can borrow up to $40,500 per year. Please note that is for a 9-month budget. If you're enrolled for more than 9 months during a particular year in dental school, your financial aid office can prorate that amount higher. These loans have fixed interest rates. The rates change on new loans dispersed on July 1 of every year. The new rate for the 24-25 academic year is 8.08%. Once again, that's for loans taken out this year, dispersed on or after July 1 of 2024. These loans have a 6-month grace period, meaning they'll come due about 6 months after you graduate. And guys, the lender for direct unsub loans, the lender is the federal government. That's why they call it a direct loan. A bank is not involved. The lender is the federal government. But they assign a third party called a loan servicer to work with you in repayment. Direct unsub loans have multiple repayment options, including options tied to your income, as we referenced earlier. And these loans are eligible for forgiveness, and they're certainly eligible for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program if you meet those requirements. After you borrow direct unsub and you max out that amount, if you need additional money, that's when you take out what's called a direct plus loan, also known as grad plus. And the borrowing limit is the cost of attendance minus all other financial aid, including direct unsub. So once again, there's not a set annual limit for direct plus loans. It's cost of attendance minus other financial aid. These also have a fixed interest rate. The new rate for the 24-25 academic year is 9.08%. Once again, these loans are always 1 full point higher with an interest rate than the direct unsub. These loans also come due 6 months after you graduate, and these are direct loans. They come directly from the federal government. And once again, with these loans, the government assigns a third-party servicer to work with you in repayment. It should be the same servicer as you have for your direct and sub loans. Since these are federal direct loans, there are multiple repayment provisions available for you, including repayment options tied to income, and these loans are eligible for forgiveness and are eligible for forgiveness with the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. Now, there are at least two approaches to borrowing for dental school, and we actually referenced this on an earlier slide. You can borrow under the full cost of attendance and increase borrowing later if needed. For example, we talked about the importance of looking at your cost of attendance or financial aid budget number and pulling out those items you have some control over, your room and board, your transportation, personal expenses. Once you know what that monthly living allowance is, if you can beat that, if you can get in under that, well, then don't borrow the full cost of attendance to start. Borrow under that. Simple example. If your budget is $96,000 and you think you can get by on $90,000, we'll borrow up to $90,000 to start. And if you need more money later, you can apply for the additional eligibility later on. What this does is it delays interest accrual, because remember, with direct and sub and direct plus, interest starts to build up when the loan is dispersed. So if you can delay when you get those funds, you're going to delay the start of interest accrual. And guys, that's going to help you reduce your total repayment cost. And it certainly will help with budgeting. But there's another approach to borrowing. Perhaps you go, look, I don't really know how much money I'm going to need. And if the financial aid office thinks my budget's $96,000, they must be right. So I'm going to borrow the full cost of attendance. And then 2 or 3 months into the year, if I find I don't need all that money, I'm going to have them return some of those funds. And guys, if you do that within the first 120 days after disbursement, it's as though you never got the funds in the first place. You pay no interest on it, and you also pay no fees. So those are two very important approaches to borrowing. So how are your colleagues who've already graduated from dental school, how are they paying back and managing their student loans? Well, we'd encourage you to already start thinking simple. When your loans come due, which once again, for the majority of you, it's going to be about 6 months after you graduate from dental school. When they come due, try and find a repayment plan with a required minimum payment that is manageable and comfortable. And that's going to vary from person to person. But once you find a payment plan with a required minimum payment you can handle, if you want to be aggressive, well, then you can overpay on the highest interest rate loan that you've got. And in all likelihood, for many of you, that's going to be Direct Plus. Or if you're having cash flow challenges, or perhaps you're trying to qualify for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, you can simply make the minimum payment. But just find a repayment plan with a comfortable required minimum payment, and then decide whether to be aggressive or to make minimum payments. Some of you will refinance your debt with a private lender to try to get a lower rate. Some of you who are interested in the nonprofit sector may be interested in the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. We have more information on that on the ADEA site, also at studentaid.gov/public service. Also, some of you may be able to get some loan repayment assistance in exchange for service with programs like the National Health Service Corps, the Armed Forces, and NIH. Now, we close up with some action items for you and some important resources to help you as you borrow for dental school. First of all, stay in touch with your financial aid office, whether it's a central campus financial aid office or a designated person in your dental school. And for goodness sakes, don't miss any deadlines, especially for scholarship funds. You're going to have a long-term relationship with your financial aid office, so be sure you know who your contact is and stay in touch with them. Once again, find out, guys, your monthly living allowance and try and stay at or under that amount. That will help you borrow smart, and never borrow more than you need. We'd encourage you to set up an online account with your loan servicer. Once again, that's the third-party organization that the federal government contracts with to work with you in repayment. We would strongly encourage you to use the AAMC ADEA Dental Loan Organizer and Calculator to track your loans and to try and provide future estimates of repayment and forgiveness options. We're going to show you that website here in just a moment on the next slide. And please be cautious where you get information about student loans, especially from social media. And we close up with some important resources to help you. We've already referenced the importance of the relationship with the financial aid office. They are your #1 contact for help with financial aid and borrowing, whether it's a main campus financial aid office or a designated person in the dental school. Find out who they are and keep in touch with them during the 4 years of dental school. You can check out ADEA.org, look for financial resources for students. We've got some information for you there. And we just referenced the AAMC ADEA Dental Loan Organizer and Calculator that we call DLOC. You can see the website there. This is a terrific debt management tool to help you not only track your student loans every year of dental school when you borrow, but to give you some repayment estimates and forgiveness estimates after you graduate. Your loan servicer's website, we'd encourage you to set up an account online as we referenced earlier, and you can also get information at studentaid.gov. On behalf of the American Dental Education Association, congratulations on your matriculation into dental school and good luck to the class of 2020-28. Please remember that responsible borrowing leads to responsible repayment.